Hello, my name is Kerry Arthur, and today we're going to talk about the Primaris Marines a bit again, but we're only going to talk about it because of a video I made. Was it last week? It was sometime, very recently, talking about Leman Russ and the possibility of him coming back as some sort of giant wolfen, which some of you agreed with, some of you didn't. That's fine. For this video, we're going to play two special games. The first game is how often will Kiri's camera flicker, because he spent the last 2 hours trying to work out why it's flickering and cannot stop it. And it's a pain in the backside, and hopefully it won't. But, you know, just if you see a flicker, do let me know, because, oh my god, I've spent so long trying to fix this, and I don't even know what the problem is to begin with. And the second game we're going to play is see how many times Kiri tries not to swear. It's been pointed out to me that very recently, I had a spate where kind of my videos were getting hit as not friendly, not suitable for all advertisers, because of course there's loads of objectionable content in my videos, what with the complete lack of violence, drugs, drinking, or anything in fact that breaks any of the guidelines, apart from swearing. Swearing is a thing I do. I should probably stop, because my daughter is getting to the point where she can actually speak now, and she can say words, and I should probably be, trying to cut down on that. I don't do it in front of her, it's fine. But that is an issue. So I'm going to make an attempt. I'm going to make that push. I'm going to be what YouTube wants me to be, which is fully advertiser friendly. I'm not going to swear. Or at least I claim I'm not going to swear. I'm probably going to end up swearing constantly because I can't help myself. And I even nearly just said that I don't give a swear word, which would completely undermine the point to begin with. But those are the games we're going to play today, to go along with the video itself. Because why not? Why not introduce a little bit of gamification into these things? So, Primaris. Also, yes, YouTube is horrendous, and the people who work this stuff out are a load of old scrollicks, to be perfectly honest. But there you go. Primaris. So we're talking about this because I raised the idea, it wasn't my idea, it's just a general idea floating around, that Leman Russ could come back as some sort of big wolfen freak when he finally returns from the warp, which I'm sure he will at some point. And I talked about how that would be kind of, in a way, interesting and unique and different, because it would show a Primarch in a completely different light. It would be a Primarch that is, would he be completely accepted by the Imperium? Would there be those who accept him because he's a Primarch and try and ignore the fact that he's clearly mutated beyond all recognition? Or would it be a case of, oh my god, who is this giant mutant freak getting him away from me? When the Primaris were first announced, when they first launched, I did quite a few videos about them because there was a lot of backlash. There was about, a lot of, oh, this is terrible, this is the worst thing I've ever seen, Warhammer 40,000 is going to fail, it's going to fall apart, no one wants this, no one likes it, so on and so forth. And I was like, well, it's not been handled in the best way. I think that's a very polite way of putting it. I think that the intention was good, and I think that I actually do like Primaris Marines, but the way they were handed to us could have been done a lot better. But it was also one of those amazing catch-22 situations where it's like, well, okay, we want you to have this thing. What can we do to give you this thing? And then no matter what the answer is, the response to the community would most likely have been, oh no, don't do it like that, that's terrible. So it's kind of one of those things where I think it was a bit of a lose-lose. No matter how the Primaris were introduced, it would have either irritated people, because if they'd have been introduced as just replacement Space Marines, then people would be like, well, I've got this massive Space Marine army, what the hell is this, what am I supposed to do? If they'd have been introduced in other ways, it would have been the same response that they got, to be honest. I don't think there's any way they could have been introduced where people would have been like, yes, I'll accept that, because it's still like a fairly fundamental shift in either the tabletop or the lore or both. So, what are you going to do? At the time, though, I was like, if Primaris Marines come out and they are just kind of, we are the best, we are the new Space Marines, we are so good, look how great we are, we can do anything, we're impervious to chaos, we can do whatever we like, that would be really, really not... There you go, almost straight away. That would be not good. That would be not great. That would be bad, I think it's fair to say. Unfortunately, that seems to be the way things have gone. I've read plenty, especially in the actual Dark Imperium novel, about how the Primaris are so awesome and so great, and how they still have personality, damn it. We're still proper space wolves, even if we have been away from the chapter for thousands of years, so on and so forth. It's all that kind of, we are still great kind of thing. And I was really hoping to have at least a little bit of a hint that they weren't all that perhaps, despite this increased resistance to chaos, that maybe, just maybe, there's a chance that they will just go mental and start messing stuff up. we haven't had that, really. I've not really seen any hint of that. I've not really seen anything kind of suggesting that the Primaris are liable to turn traitor, that they're liable to have some sort of catastrophic failure in gene seed, that they are in fact not the, frankly, boring Mary Sues that I really hoped they wouldn't be. Now, of course, there's still time. There is still time for Games Workshop to concede that, oh no, actually, Primaris do have flaws, just like every other Space Marine. You know, it turns out that you can tinker with the gene seed for 10,000 years, you can claim they're more resistant to chaos, but at some point something's going to happen and you're going to lose a few. There is time for that, but I honestly feel like that is something that needs to happen sooner rather than later, because with every reinforcement as to how great Primaris are, the more it kind of feels like they are just there for the sake of it. So it's a problem that I think comes up in a lot of fiction, a lot of universes, with a lot of writing. If you introduce something new and you're like, oh yeah, this is great, and then their whole personality is, this is great, they're so good, they quickly become bland, they become uninteresting. And they also, in the case of 40k specifically, in the case of the Primaris specifically, put the universe in kind of like an untenable position. Yes, we do have a massive rift just slicing through the Imperium. It's not ideal for the Imperium, the situation they're in. But the way it's presented, where the Primaris are revealed, and they form the Indomitus Crusade, and they go around saving planets and rescuing the Blood Angels, and hooray, Lord Gilliman is here with his army of super special boys. That's fine for a little bit. But you can't found, like, hundreds of extra chapters. You can't flood the Imperium with, you know, thousands upon thousands more Space Marines. Not just Space Marines. Thousands upon thousands more better Space Marines. And then still sit there and go, but you see, the Imperium is still in a shed load of trouble. I'm trying so hard. You can't do that, because there's a certain amount of dissonance where it's like, I mean, you say they're in a certain amount of trouble, you say that things are going really badly, but how bad can it really be when you've got this army of brand new super soldiers? You know, it loses that position of teetering on the very edge. And, you know, I realise that when it comes to updates to lore, when it comes to novels and stuff, you can't just pump a load of stuff out. You can't just be like, here's 18 books, knock yourself out. It takes time. But because of the time nature of it, because of the fact that you have to have these release schedules, these delays between story updates, you're kind of left with that one perspective for a long time. So the Dark Imperium book has been out since the start of 8th. You know, it's the tie-in novel. So what we've got to go on currently is mostly the foundations laid by that, which, as time progresses, as more codexes come out, there's no big update for the Primaris. There's nothing that kind of makes it so that they are like a little bit less perfect. What we really need, and you know, whether people will agree with this or not, is going to be interesting to see, to be honest. What I think we need is a combination of things. I think we need dissatisfaction from certain chapters of Space Marines with the Primaris project as a whole. We need that internal conflict, and we need that brought out to form actually some sort of scuffle, some kind of real fight. Not necessarily between Primaris and Space Marines, but a genuine kind of breakdown in communication between chapters who believe that the Primaris are the future, and those that believe that, you know, Primaris are an abomination. They are an insult to Space Marines as a whole. We need Primaris to turn traitor. We absolutely need that. We need some to fall to chaos, because you cannot have a chaos immune kind of army in 40k. Well, I say that. We can't have another one. You know, we've got the Grey Knights, we've got Sisters of Battle, who have mostly not having chaos, although their presence on the tabletop is laughably small because they're still using terrible metal models from 20 years ago. Get yourselves together, oh my god. You can't then introduce Primaris and have them be, you know, as widespread as normal Space Marines and immune to chaos. Where does chaos get its reinforcements in that case? This is something that I've been thinking about for quite a while, actually. Another reason for Primaris not being the perfect Mary Sue boys, the absolutely, oh, I cannot be corrupted, I am filled with the Emperor's light, nothing can ever change that. You can't have that in the context of a world or a universe where everything is in balance between alien races, the race of man, and those who have turned against the race of man from within. You cannot have that balance and then just go, oh, by the way, now the race of man has got even more reinforcements who are completely immune to turning traitor. Okay, so now Primaris Marines are here. Primaris Marines are doing pretty well in that they're not turning traitor. At some point, since you're not going to make old Space Marines anymore, or at least production of old Space Marines presumably is going to fall off exponentially as Primaris technology is distributed throughout all chapters, where exactly does Chaos get their reinforcements? You can't have the narrative of Chaos and alien races versus the Imperium when the Chaos side of things are being starved of new warriors. A number of, I'm not going to say the majority because I actually genuinely don't know whether it's the majority or not. I would assume so. You're going to have a significant number of Chaos Space Marines coming from the Imperium. You're going to have them turning traitor. There's a significant failure rate when it comes to Space Marines and falling to Chaos. If you just cut that off and you're just like, oh yeah, no, Primaris fixed that, you've just unbalanced it. You've massively unbalanced it to the point where, is Chaos even a credible threat? In terms of Chaos Space Marines, is Chaos a credible threat? Well, the Chaos Gods and Demons may well be, but that is not as compelling a narrative as man versus man. That hasn't got the same kind of, I was going to say good versus evil, but the Imperium isn't good. It hasn't got the same feel. An army of men facing down a horde of demons is all very well and works great if you want that Doom experience. But 40k was not built specifically on that. The foundation of 40k, the very foundation of the lore in which 40k has now, is brother versus brother. It's man versus man. You can't make one side immune to what causes the other side to turn traitor. There's no equilibrium there. There's no balance. It just bottoms out, and what you're left with, a non-credible threat. So, for me, what I really want to see, and I want to see it sooner rather than later, and I'd be really disappointed if this doesn't ever happen, because to me it's a fundamental issue with the universe that Games Workshop have written. The Primaris either need to turn renegade, they need to turn some existing chapters traitor, and they need to turn traitor themselves. You've got to have that conflict. You've got to have that baseline for what makes 40k 40k. Whilst I do like Primaris, whilst I like the look of them, I like the armour, I like the weapons, I like the way they play, I don't like the idea that you can introduce a faction that so handily makes it so that the entire fabric, the entire supporting strut of the storyline of 40k can just be kind of removed without it causing an issue. I don't like that at all. And the more I think about it, and especially after we talked about Leman Russ coming back as a Wolfen, I feel like the conflict needs to be there. There needs to be more pushback. There needs to be more resistance. There needs to be more of a reaction to Primaris than just the occasional hint of jealousy from a normal Space Marine and the occasional kind of, oh man, it's weird how we're different to the other Space Marines. There needs to be more. There's got to be more. And really, that's the only thing I can think. Brother versus brother is the very fabric of 40k. You either need to have some turn renegade, you need to have some turn traitor, or you need to have some older Space Marine chapters reject them, and for that to cause a conflict. Otherwise, the balance is gone. The thing that makes 40k 40k is fundamentally changed, and much though I like the idea of moving the 40k universe on, and not just having it... I mean, the Imperium... This is a minor tangent, okay? The story is of a stagnant Imperium. that does not mean that the story needs to be stagnant. That's something that I think a lot of people don't really... When I say get, I don't think that's the right word, because I think it's very much an opinion-based thing. But for me personally, I've always seen it as the story is of an Imperium that is stagnant. It is of a universe that is stagnant. That doesn't necessarily mean that the story has to be stagnant. You can have stories develop, you can have things change, you can have events happen, you can have reactions to those events, you can have catastrophic losses, you can have awesome victories without it changing the fact that the Imperium is one massive, rotten, stagnant thing. You know, you can have story progress without having actual tangible progress in terms of what the Imperium is and what the 40k universe is. If you introduce something like the Primaris without thinking ahead in terms of what they could do to that stagnant empire, not the story, the empire, you're at risk of making it seem unfeasible. I mean, as it is, 40k is so extravagant that it's already kind of unfeasible. But that's one of the things I love about it. It's so grand and ridiculous in the scale, and the numbers are so completely out there that if you sit there and you're like, would that actually work? You might end up coming away thinking, no, that wouldn't work, but it doesn't matter because the way in which it's presented is so over the top that you just go along with it. You're like, yeah, no, I'm on board. I'm on board with that. Let's do it. You can't introduce stuff that messes that balance up without doing something to counteract it. So I'm hoping that they do. I'm hoping that they do something with the Primaris to make it so that they're not that kind of balanced, disturbing force that they seem to be at the moment. I'd be interested in what you think, though. Do you think there's something in that? Do you think that there is that balance that needs to be maintained? Do you think it wouldn't make much difference if Chaos Space Marines did start to kind of dry out a little bit? Would Chaos Demons take the slack? Would we see like a kind of upswing in things like Necron and Tau and Eldar encounters, stuff like that? Be interested in what you think. It's something I've been thinking about for a little bit, and yeah, just let me know in the comments below, as always. And I think I got away without swearing there. It was close a couple of times. It's really hard not to when you're in the habit. Well, I'll just have to rely on you to tell me whether the camera flickered or not. Hopefully it didn't. Anyway, if you like that video, hit that like button. I'm getting better at that bit. I still hate doing the outro. It sucks every time. There's the usual array of nonsense to click. Just Patreon, subscribe, videos, do it if you like. It's entirely up to you. Live your life as you please. I will see you for the next one. Toodaloo.